So I want to make a video about a lot of people out there get into a marriage and then ultimately the bedroom goes cold and they find themselves in a sexless marriage, and it's really depressing. And ultimately what happens a lot of times, sometimes it can happen when where the woman is not getting the intimacy that she wants, but most of the time it's going to be the man's not, bedroom game dries up, and then the man's not getting any intimacy. And so I wanted to kind of talk about that. And basically, my message is, men, don't beg for intimacy. It doesn't work out, and it's a bad look. And the first reason why it's a bad look is because women, if you think about somebody begging, if you think about somebody, knocking on somebody's door and getting on their knees and begging them for their help, that's a terrible image, but I mean, because we should be compassionate towards people. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, if we're on our knees begging somebody to give us something, is that a weak position or a strong position? And who has the power in that exchange? Basically, the person that's begging is pleading, and they're in a very kind of unenviable position. They're certainly not in a powerful position, and they're in a weak position, and they're giving the power to the person, saying, hey, you have something that I want, and I'm begging you to give it to me. And so it's just not, I would say women don't respect weakness within men. Women, and anybody wouldn't really have much respect for somebody that's begging them for something and saying, give me this out of obligation, or, I really. So just from the optics of it, if we just take a step back, if you find yourself in that position, it's just not going to work. It's not a position to take, and not a strategy to go for. It's gonna come back and bite you, especially if you get in a pattern of doing it like that. Another thing that I've seen people do in that situation is they're feeling like their needs are not getting met, and so they try to negotiate with the person, and they try to make a schedule. So we're gonna have intimacy on this and this day per week. And a lot of people end up trying something like that because it's a desperate move. They say, I'm just feeling completely lovesick and my partner's not giving me this kind of I'm not feeling the love and connection, and I just feel like I'm not getting what I need. In those situations, that never works either. A lot of times if the people negotiate between themselves, the woman might go and tell her girlfriend, say, hey, this is like my partner says this is what we want to do, and I agreed to it. And then their friend might be like, that's crazy. Like, intimacy, sex is not something that you schedule and you agree to in like some sort of contract. And it certainly becomes very obvious that there's like a transactional kind of vibe behind that. And it doesn't feel like it comes from a place of love. So the thing is with men, I feel like, I repeat this on the channel a lot because I believe it. It's the idea that, in order for a woman to feel ready for intimacy and opened up to intimacy, she has to feel loved and cared for legitimately, and she has to feel that you love her specifically for who she is, not this idealization of a wife, or not this idea of a woman or somebody adjacent to her. If she's going to open up for intimacy, she has to feel cared for by you through and through. And she has to feel uniquely special, her. Like, you're not in love with anybody, you're in love with her. So if you have resentments towards her, you think she's stupid, you think her interests are stupid, you think that a lot of her takes on things are just far-fetched, or you don't really back her up, and you don't have respect for her, she is gonna, women are very perceptive, so she's gonna feel that in her bones. She might not be able to articulate it, but she's going to feel that deep down what it is, and she's going to feel that you don't love and respect her, and that's going to kind of close up shop, and she's not going to feel like she's want to be open in intimacy. From the men's perspective, it's often said that men need to have intimacy, physical intimacy, to feel like they are loved. So if they don't have physical intimacy, they don't feel loved, and so a lot of times they feel like, why am I even in this relationship? And that can happen too, where a guy's you go for a period, and I've heard people go sexless in their marriage for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and then people finally wake up and say, this is absurd. They live in denial for so long, and they just, they kind of, that's it. The marriage kind of falls falls flat after that. So my advice here is going to be maybe like 2 parts. The first part is going to be do everything. I think I often talk about, I strongly believe in a more gendered paradigm with men and women. A lot of people just kind of don't know what that means. I feel like we've forgotten what masculinity looks like. I feel like masculinity has been spit on as something that's not necessary, and we really don't even understand kind of how men lead in a relationship anymore, and that's been to everybody's detriment, men and women. So I think that women, I always say this all the time, women lead in a large variety of aspects of the relationship, but in regard to the romantic portion of the relationship, and for the woman feeling like she's being taken care of, that is squarely on the man's shoulders. So a way that a man needs to lead in a happy, healthy relationship, he needs to take point and take it as his responsibility to care for the woman. You don't have to be at her beck and call and do this endlessly chase, making her happy. And there's a lot involved in that. A lot of people will say, hey, if you pursue happy wife, happy life, you're a moron. And I have thoughts on that, but basically what that means is just like, if you try to make it your mission to make somebody happy, it's ultimately going to be a fool's errand, and because it'll be endless. And the person actually, in the pursuit of you trying to make them happy, then you might end up making them miserable. And there's a lot of depth in that discussion, so I won't go into that. But effectively, your job isn't to necessarily make your wife happy. Your wife is to make sure that she feels loved, and to make sure that she feels cared for, and that you care for her specifically. And so that's the piece where when it's very common for men and women to reach a stalemate, and for the engine basically is running on a cylinder that's revolving, and effectively the pistons ultimately seize up and they stop. And so it's like, well, what part of the engine do we need to torque here to kind of get the pistons going again and get this engine going? Because the guy will look at the woman and be like, you haven't given me sex in a year. Why the F would I give a shit about taking you out on a date? I know where this is going. I'm not going to get any, again, it comes down to a lot of, it feels very selfish. And then the woman feels like, well, hey, you don't really love me for me. You just want me to spread my legs, and you want to use me because you feel like I'm here as an obligation to be, for your to meet your male needs. So screw you. And so you get into this harsh selfishness, but marriage is not meant to be selfish. A marriage is meant to be giving, and when both people are giving, both people get their needs met, both people feel loved. So I always say, I'm a big advocate for men, big advocate for women as well, but I deal with a lot of men's support group space, but I really am a big advocate for men to step up and to lead, and this is exactly the time to lead, to get out of the stalemate, make it your mission. And a lot of guys are going to feel like, hey, I no matter what I try, it doesn't work, and I get it. But I would say with pretty big confidence that the woman is not going to fix this and take the initiative to fix this, right? And I think women are great. I think women give a lot of themselves to the marriage, but I think in this particular area, men need to step up, and men need to do their best. Take it as your responsibility and your duty. Say, I married this woman, and my commitment in this marriage is caring for this woman and making her feel loved and making her feel special. So if I'm going to fix this issue, it's going to be on me, and I'm going to do that. So essentially, what you're doing, I talked about in the start of the video. Don't sit there and beg. Don't sit there and beg your wife for sex. That's an awful idea. It's as a strategy, it's weak. As a man, you're being passive. You're basically throwing it over to somebody else to appease you or not, give you what you want or not. It's a very, I've given up, and now I'm just going to beg you and grind on you, and maybe I'll be very disrespectful to you because I'm not getting something. It comes from a place of selfishness, and selfishness and weakness and pathetic kind of begging doesn't work with women. Women want to see, again, women are very challenging, but women are not as complex as we often think. It's very difficult to understand a woman's psyche, but at the end of the day, the thing that we really just need to focus on is they want to feel loved, they want to feel respected, and they want to feel special for who they are, that you love them for who they are. So I say work on that. As soon as you transition from I'm begging to this is a project. Men are fucking great at doing projects. Men are really great at saying, I'm gonna roll up my sleeves and I'm gonna diagnose and I'm gonna, grind this shit out and I'm gonna figure this out. So for me, my message is I'm trying to be very empowering to men. You have it in you to figure this out if you want to. I really want to tell men, everything that you need is within you. I think we don't empower men in our society, and we need to, because this is the exact scenario why. Because men, when we obsess over something, it fucking gets under our skin like a tick, and it agitates us, and we say, well, I want to figure this out. I'm gonna figure this out, god damn it. And we drive ourselves insane until we actually get the job done, and then we say, oh, I did it. So for me, treat your marriage like that. Treat loving your wife like this thing that you're obsessing over to try to kind of fix. The second thing I'll say is, after you've done all that, unfortunately, this is kind of negative. I wanted to end on a positive note, and I'll try to spin it that way. But trying to end on a positive note here, or trying to just basically say what I was going to say is, in certain situations, it's just not going to happen. And I think something happens with certain women. Certain women just don't want to always have sex. And it's not something like a lifelong pursuit. And just in my experience of talking with guys throughout the years, there's a lot of factors in that. But some women, it just doesn't happen with their husband. They're not able to kind of work through it and fix it. And then those women are alone for decades after the divorce, and they just don't need that sexual component from men. And I think the vast majority of men are not like that. So it's really difficult. I don't have a bunch of data on that, but to me, throughout just my anecdotal evidence of my lived experience, I would say that happens. And I'm sure that there's men out there that kind of become sexless, and it's not on the agenda. It doesn't drive them to go out and find it. But I do feel like there's definitely a lot of women out there. It becomes a big problem in their marriage. They get a divorce and they just feel like they don't need a man again. And I do feel like that's a unique thing to women. So in certain situations for men, in those situations, I would advocate for you to, I'm not somebody that's big on advocating people to get a divorce, but I also feel that, again, men, when you're in a marriage and you feel that you're not getting intimacy, there's a difference between men and women. Like I said, it's like women need to love to feel like they're open to intimacy, and men need to feel intimacy to feel like they're being loved. And so if you don't have that, I've been there. You effectively feel like a eunuch. You feel like you're a sexless. You feel like you don't have, you're not a man. You don't feel manly, and it's to feel unwanted and undesired for so long really weighs heavily on you, and it can kind of just be the sleeper thing, like kind of being a lobster, or I should say a frog that's in a boiling pot of water. It's just kind of a gradual thing, and then you wake up one day and you feel like, man, I haven't felt passion in a decade, and holy shit, and you realize how of the impact that's had on you. So again, I don't want to tell somebody make a willy-nilly decision to run out on somebody that's kind of given up on intimacy, but my heart goes out to you. And a lot of men have kind of find themselves in the position that you're in, so you're not alone. But I think a lot of men feel that sense of protection of, hey, I married my wife for life, and I vowed to protect her, and so I'm to be basically leaving marriage because I'm not getting the intimacy. Men feel a great deal of guilt about that, because that doesn't feel like you're protecting somebody. That feels, I think, a lot of times people will, there's a lot of shit men out there, let's be honest, but there's also a lot of really good men out there that kind of get into weird situations like I'm talking about, and it's not really right. It doesn't feel right, and then our world doesn't really talk about that. Our world doesn't really have a lot of compassion for men. It's just kind of like we really focus, because there's many examples of women kind of being abused by men. That always gets the focus, right? Because it feels like men are punching down. And so anytime men are affected, it feels like, well, who gives a fuck about men? Because it's like almost like punching up, so nobody gives a shit. But for me, I'm here, and I just want to say, like, if you're in a sexless marriage, I know how that feels, and it feels like you're not wanted. And over time, it really kills any sense of self-respect or self-worth that you have. And I would say Dr. Taraban, or Ryan Taraban had basically said something about this, where if you end up in a sexless marriage, that's not a monogamous marriage. And I don't know, he kind of did this like a very rational argument about it, about it's like mono means one. And so if you're in a monogamous relationship, that means both of you are having sex with each other, and that you have one partner. And so if you jump to two partners, then you've broken your pact in the marriage. So it's okay for the man to kind of jump ship. I mean, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but he was also saying, hey, if your spouse basically says, I don't want to have sex with you anymore, well, it goes from one partner to zero partners. So now they have zero partners and you have zero partners, and that's broken monogamy. So I don't know, again, I feel to some extent that was mental gymnastics, but I think what he was kind of getting at was the same thing that I'm trying to get at, which is just, hey, it really sucks for men when you end up in a sexless marriage. So I'm just going to end by saying, I think the best that you can do is be the best that you can for the woman in your life, to really honor your marriage. The vow that you made to her is to do your very best to treat her with honor and respect and love, and cherish her, treat her like she's the most beautiful woman in the world. And that's what you do. That's what you do, and you make a really honest attempt at that. And if you ultimately find that you just ran out of gas and you really can't do that, then that says a lot. That says basically maybe your heart isn't in it anymore. And if you ultimately feel like you've done everything you can, and you just the other person is just not, the reciprocity is not there, and that desire is not there, coming back for you, then I guess I would just say, why are you going to stay? Because this person that's a core part of you feeling loved, and this person is okay with withholding that from you. So does that person really love you? Again, it's a touchy subject because women don't owe us anything. They don't owe us intimacy. But at the same time, if it's like you're not getting your needs met and the person really loves you, shouldn't they care about you not getting your needs met and you feeling like you're feeling loved and you're feeling that sense of connection? So if they really care about you, that's something that maybe they might say, like, hey, like maybe the solution here is that we aren't together anymore, or we have some sort of understanding or something like that. I don't know. I'm not big. Don't want to get into that category or whatever. But anyways, I think I'll leave it there. I think we covered a lot of ground. And again, I just want to. I got some flack the other day on like somebody's comments about me, it's interesting. It's been an interesting experience because like I just want to reiterate my message and continually to do that and refine it. For me, I really want to empower people. I've been in the male improvement, male support group space for a while. I have a soft spot in my heart. I went through a divorce, and it was really, really difficult as a man. So I love the idea of giving back and empowering other men. And I want to be positive. I don't just want to empower other men. I want to empower. I think empowered men make for much better partners and much better marriages. I'm very pro-marriage. I've got a great marriage with my wife, and I'm very happy. So I want to be somebody that's a messenger of positivity towards men and women harmonizing, and men and women having compassion and empathy towards each other and getting along. So I'm just going to focus on that, and hopefully enough people like hear my message and really see like, hey, this guy's really trying to think through stuff, not just from a man's side or what, like that type of thing. And he's really trying to just engage in conversations and help people out. And that's what I'm about. So if you like it, please like and subscribe. They really help me out as a growing channel. I really appreciate it, and I would really love conversations on the comments, hear what you guys have to think, and just kind of keep this discussion going. So thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.